Hello and welcome back to Harry Shoots People. Band and gig photography is something that I've always been interested in, and as fate would have it, I've had the opportunity to do it twice recently, so I thought I'd take you guys along with me and share my process and results and see what could be improved and what went well. So recently I had the opportunity to shoot my friend Ralph's band, the Italian Fiasco, and it was the first time I'd ever done something like this, so safe to say I was pretty nervous. Going into it, I did quite a lot of research on how to shoot bands and how to just shoot at a gig, and one of the main results I found was just to use flash, and at this point I didn't really feel too comfortable using flash, and especially not a manual one that I had to meter for separately. This gig ended up being a week before I had to end up shooting flash for the first time at Off the Square in Manchester, where I made an entirely separate video that's already up if you want to see how that went. However, I opted to instead just pick a high-speed film which would give me that sort of flexibility on what I could shoot in the moment. And the high-speed film that I landed on to make things easier for myself was Ilford Delta 3200, a film that I'd never shot before, so making things easier for myself was already going great. I loaded it up into the Contax 139Q with the Carl Zeiss 50mm lens on, took a quick test picture of my friend Michael before we set off, and then got to the gig and started shooting. Immediately after getting these images back, I regretted not using flash. There's an awful lot of blur just from having to have the lens open for a slightly longer time than I'm normally accustomed to. I think the camera was on auto, so it must have been shooting at either 1/30th or 1/15th, and there was just a bit too much movement going on in the scene and also from me to capture a lot of stillness. So there's a nice range of slight artistic blur to just an absolutely indistinguishable blur of images. Also, one component of Delta 3200 is, with it being such a high-speed film, there is an awful lot of grain, and these images are most certainly grainy. Also, because I was shooting wide open, there's quite a nice softness to some of the images where you get the fall off behind where the focus is, which I do quite like. And then for some reason, there was only one song left at the gig, but I decided to load up Portrait 400 into my camera, and shooting 400 speed in the dark went about as well as you'd expect. There's a huge red cast over pretty much every single one of these images. I do think it gives quite a nice like ethereal, mysterious ambience to the images, especially this one, which is my personal favourite. I am more impressed with the red cast images than I am with the images from the Delta, just because they come across a bit more stylised, which I'd like to say was intentional, but unfortunately it wasn't. They also remind me of the Loveless cover, which is pretty cool, and this image in particular reminds me of this Declan McKenna cover. These are probably my favourites from the two rolls. Not the best shots of all time, but I definitely learned some lessons and I could apply those to the second time of shooting them, which happened last week. Going into this second time, I was a lot more comfortable using flash, so I decided to take the same camera with the same lens, with just a standard hot shoe flash unit on the top. The same setup that I had it off the square, and hopefully this time it would lead to a lot less blur and a lot more clarity in the images. Having preferred the colour last time, I decided to shoot Kodak Gold 200 this time, as it's one of my favourite films, and after referencing the back of my flash, it told me to shoot at f16, which seemed way too closed, and I was a bit apprehensive about it, a bit worried whether the photos actually come out, but I do think the results speak for themselves. I'm far happier with these images, especially compared to the other two times. I think the colours, composition and clarity are all far improved this time, and that you can tell what's going on in the images, and I do think the feeling of being there is permeated a lot better in these images compared to the others. I felt a lot more confident shooting the band this time too. It can be a bit daunting and I do feel as though I'm in the way, but I do think it's just a mental block, and I feel like the more comfortable you are shooting them and the more comfortable you are in your own ability, the better the photos will come out. And I think that's shown in this roll, especially compared to the prior two. Even shooting with the same camera and the same 50mm lens, the photos just feel a lot tighter and a lot more intentional. I did try my best to do some creative blocking, but there wasn't really the space for it, and also I was mainly just focused on getting the images right due to how the last time went. There are a handful of images that I shot without flash just due to my concerns about the f16, and they came out with the same red cast as the Portra did. And these are my favourite images from this roll, and probably my favourites overall. So we learnt the lesson that you should definitely use flash unless you're going for some creative artsy expression of how the band sounds rather than a clear image of how the band looks. So that's how I shoot bands. I'm looking forward to learning a lot more lessons about this and improving my skills in this area of photography. So if that's something you'd like to see, feel free to subscribe and maybe comment your favourite of the images today. Thank you for watching.